Welcome everyone. It's nice to speak with you today, and as was stated, this is the May/June and release, and we will have, due to obviously some of the holidays, we do have we'll have a new release update here coming up pretty soon for the July updates. So as Lori said, my name is Alan DeLuce. It's again, it's nice to speak with everyone today. As she said, if you would like, post some questions. If I can't get to them, or if there's some things we need to follow up on, by all means, if you post those questions, we will get back with you. So, my name is Alan DeLuce. I've been with in the industry rather for 20 years or so. I've been with IMAGINiT for the last 3. I'm in Indianapolis. And yeah, so let's get moving into the agenda. So today we're going to talk about some of the platform-wide enhancements, so literally things that just apply to the entire ACC. Some of the docs, some of the build, some of the cost, as well as some of just kind of the general data. Kind of AI is sprinkled throughout these enhancements for sure, and then some of the admin and account tools. So what I wanted to point out is, by all means, every time we have a release, there's Autodesk updates it on their help page. So as you can see on screen, and as Lori will have posted into the chat, I believe, there's a link to this page here, where it's the what's new. Ultimately, if you're a heavy user or just general user of ACC and build specifically, you should definitely bookmark this help page. It's very, very helpful. I know I do, and all my colleagues, we use it quite a bit. It's good stuff. So for the platform-wide enhancements, we've had a number of updates, and if everyone is has seen these before or is familiar, these are bi-monthly, and as I said, we do have a new one coming up here for the July updates that we'll drop a review of them here in upcoming weeks. So ultimately, Autodesk a couple releases ago dropped the AI assistant, and what's great for this release is that there's now the language support. So now if you are working on a global project and you need to be able to kind of get some quick turnaround on communications with language barriers, all of us can participate, and with that AI, you'll be able to more quickly, maybe not have to post it into Google Translate and ultimately get some information much more speedily. As far as the AI-powered workflows, if everyone hasn't seen, there is this Insight Builder, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But specifically for all of those of us who enjoy just analytics and the information that is baked into our insights, well, they now have the new release, or the Insights Builder came out a little while ago, but now we have Insight Builder. We can leverage that to get more of the Power BI and maybe advanced Excel or Tableau, whatever you're using for your data. These Insight Builders are much more advanced, and just kind of navigate to that page to be able to go see some of those and start building out your insights dashboards. You can see a few of them there on screen. And similarly to go into those help pages, whenever you navigate to a page and you see those learn more, as you can see there on the screen, welcome to Insight Builder, learn more. Always take a look at that if you've not been there, because that takes you that help directly and gives you kind of that walkthrough. Good stuff. And then also for those of us who've been using the BIM 360 experience in the past, and maybe you're As the ACC expands and we have people using both platforms, Autodesk has done a very good job in this update to align those experiences so that we can kind of not have to go and navigate back and forth and kind of be hunting and pecking to try to find where certain things are from one experience to the other. So understanding that this is still going to go on for a few more years, they're really trying to make sure that people are comfortable going back and forth. All right, so let's take a look at some of the docs enhancements. So we can now produce some folder permission reporting, and this allows us to have much more quick visibility into who has access to what. And we need to know this because we want to make sure that we're not letting things slip. And maybe you have people who shouldn't have access to certain folders or you know, just general data. You know, if you own the hub and you don't want your consultants or contractors seeing certain things, we want to be able to not have to drill into each of these locations to determine who does. So the reporting and auditing capability there is very, very handy. And secondarily, this custom attributes model table view, it gives us a much more cleaner review process for our data in the mobile, on the mobile device. And we'll see more about those mobile enhancements a little bit later. And as far as the transmittals go, adding recipients to the transmittal, it helps us understand, and this is one of the smaller things. Maybe we don't all use these every day, but it helps us to understand who got access to what, and you don't have to maybe resend an entire package. You just drop them into that original transmittal and you should be good to go. So ultimately, these features give us more control and visibility and less room for errors, especially when we're working on on large projects that are complex. It really helps us out to kind of stay more organized. As far as streamlining the process, so we'll see this again a little bit more later as far as the attribute review and that mobile experience. There's been a number of adds to this mobile experience that we'll see a little bit later that make that a cleaner process, a little bit faster on updating projects and being able to dial it in and customize the mobile experience to your needs, as opposed to having that kind of generic the generic settings that everyone has to use. So they've really made some good enhancements there. Again, permission auditing, so that we can make sure we see, so that we can have access and visibility into who received what, when, and where. And in doing so with these permission audits, it helps us to understand who received it. And it's a standardized process, so we can make sure that by member and role and so on, that can be rolled out across our organization. And it's standardized and allows us to not have to worry about who you fat fingered something and now somebody else has access to information. That standardized process really helps us out throughout the project management and document management lifecycle. Now let's take a look at some of the build enhancements. So this is on the project management side for sure. So communications and control. So we have added this advanced permission phase 2 to the correspondence module. And so basically it allows us to have a much more granular control over who can see what when it comes to this project information. We had that private, we have the private capability that allows us to share information, or rather the administrator can only see it if it's, if you have other individuals, they won't be able to see those correspondence if they're not directly tied to them, and that's of course important. But if we have, say we have like a subcontractor that works in a specific scope, and we don't want those individuals seeing maybe a cross scope or what have you. Really want to kind of narrow in and have them only have visibility to what they need, especially when we're talking about, in projects with very project sensitive, perhaps pricing and things like that that are email driven. We really want to be able to narrow in and make sure that they're not seeing things they can't, and there's some new enhancements there for permissions in this phase 2 for correspondence. We have some new capabilities for RFI status tracking and with filters. So PMs or project coordinators, whoever, you can filter RFIs by status. It makes it easier to prioritize what are your action items, what's already what's already resolved. So if you're in a huge list and you've got tons of information, rather tons of RFIs you need to dig through, this allows us to more quickly capture where is the what is accountable, what are you accountable for, how do we become actionable. So we've also added this mobile filter. They've added the mobile filtering for RFIDs by ID, location, and by date. So it's really powerful because, say you're on your actual phone as opposed to maybe a tablet, which has a larger screen. The phones have the tiny screen. You need to be able to access this information as quickly as possible. You need better filtering capabilities, and that's what we have with these new filtering capabilities on the mobile. So when we, especially in the field, is where it's most important. We need to be able to access just the data we need. We need to be able to get there in fewer picks and clicks. That's why there's so much focus on mobile enhancements, certainly for this release. All right, some submittal management. So we have got now capabilities where we can kind of work with we have a new column that's been added, this pending action from. And so with this new column, it allows us to identify in a heartbeat who needs to execute next. So if it's on you, we can now filter by this. So if it's on you, get it done. That's in your ball in court. And then ultimately, most importantly, this is there in the log, so you don't have to worry about something that's been assigned to you from your home page. When you're in that submittal page, there's those columns, and we can reorganize those columns to say, hey, make that second column. You know exactly who's involved in it and who needs to be actionable. What this does is it reduces bottlenecks and lets us kind of narrow in and target the individuals where we may have actionable items fall through the cracks. Scheduling. There's been a ton of stuff that's been added and enhanced with schedules, and as of late, whether it's the work planning, and there's just a lot of value there and lots of opportunities for us to really enhance our processes by pulling in those third-party schedules and then being able to make them actionable in the ACC, tying those to various capabilities over to the work plans, over to our cost management, and giving our field the ability to be actionable and have that transparency and visibility into our schedules. And one of the things we've heard 1,000 times, I know I have, there's the ability now to pull in a task list directly from Excel. So we all know how much people adore Excel. Personally, I do as well. So this is a great add that allows us to use existing tools in our tool set and enhance those and actually bring those directly in to expedite that setup. You can also now add references from your mobile device. This is really valuable because it allows the people who are actionable, again, our field, our foremen, our supers, to kind of identify where there's issues or concerns, or just literally for planning purposes, for them to be able to be actionable, communicate that information, the office can see it and react accordingly. Okay, so now let's take a shift over to asset tracking. So if you're not using assets, I would suggest that you take a look at it. By all means, reach out. The asset tool is very, very handy for us. It allows us to execute many different tasks, consolidate information, and tie those data points to others with those references that we're very used to in ACC. But also in the case of assets, being able to loop in our models. And so what we now have the ability to do, we have additional capability for mapping our models to our assets in ACC. So we have these additional mapping operators. And so instead of having just, we have more flexibility to connect data points rather than just the few specific operators we could connect before with that one size, kind of the one size fits all. Now we have much more flexibility. And in doing so, we are now able to quickly loop in data from that model, create those assets, which, you know, creating assets can be certainly from models can be a tedious task. So now we have that ability with these new mapping operators to expedite that process more, again, more flexibly. We can now filter our assets, filter active assets through what forms are tied to these components. So if you've got a standardized form for all of your mechanical equipment and you want to be able to find what assets have that form tied to them so that you can go maybe on site on a given day and be able to fill out that form for everywhere it is tied to, every piece of equipment that it's tied to, we can now filter in that way. Similarly, we have this model review page, and it's just a cleaner experience, easier to navigate and more intuitive for our teams conducting, site walks or inspections, and wanting to be able to execute that with while it's tied to the model environment. All right, so getting back to some of the mobile aspects for field collaboration, we can now, with our forms, we can add attachments securely and have those forms be very those attachments are permission controlled, such that if someone doesn't have access, or rather need access, or have the ability to see something that's maybe attached, they won't be able to see that. At this point, they will not be able to see that, again, based on their permission. We also now have the ability to, for filtering, or rather for issues, we can now filter by created, and we can also hide issues that are closed by default, which is something that, that could have been, it certainly was kind of tedious. Hey, I want to hide all these because I know that they're closed. You had to go and do that manually. Now we can do that by default. As far as these model deep links, they let you open issues directly via docs and model coordination, importantly, and it takes you and zooms you directly into the model element. So instead of just navigating to opening up issue 128, for instance, quote unquote, anchor bolt is misaligned. It jumps you directly to that anchor bolt in the model. And so as you're navigating and discussing this issue, perhaps with with the trade in the field, you can show them it's collaborative, it's model driven, it makes sense. It's not, again, the picture is worth 1,000 words, as we all understand, with the reason why we all execute models and why we're using them in our BIM and VDC process. It really allows us to leverage that model in context for that conversation and saves us time, gets us on to the next task. So some additional continued enhancements here for the mobile. So some of this here certainly applies to our civil and site crews. When we have this, there's the beta, model viewer beta experience, there's been some updates. So we have this new spot coordinate and surface measurement capability, plus dark mode. Dark mode, for all of us working outside, there's, with the glare, and we need to be able to see things. That dark mode capability really helps us. I mean, I know personally I use dark mode everywhere I can, on mobile, on Outlook, wherever. It's always nice to have that dark mode and easier to see, certainly when we're in the field. But with these spot coordinates, we can literally be hovering over and place and capture a pin on the model and get those exact spot coordinates. So whenever when we're perhaps out in the field, we need to be able to select a location for a conversation with one of our other contractors. Hey, what is this coordinate? We can go and literally drop a pin and find that exactly. This is really handy for when we're checking placement, perhaps of sleeves, of embeds in concrete, things like that, or perhaps structural components in the field, just general concrete, just layout context. For surface measurement, this gives us the ability to capture area directly from the model. That can be a slab pour. We could try to capture the amount of drywall that's been installed. That kind of information allows us to capture square footage and so on directly there in the model, so that we don't maybe have to go back and forth between plan view, section or elevation views, things like that. Also, the selection mode has been improved. It allows us to be able to navigate and interact with our models faster and more precisely. Select just what you need and it can zoom in and out directly. Double selecting on components will zoom us directly into that component. Some handy adds. All right, so some of and again, more of these mobile app improvements. So the Android settings screen update has now been, there is now parity between iOS updates. As we all understand, kind of the iOS comes along first and then Android follows behind. Now, very handy if you have large projects and it takes a minute for it to synchronize, you have to go navigate and leave the page. We now have in-project sync, so we can stay right in the project and we can update that project and synchronize. If we get a call from someone, we need to update the project. They've synchronized at the office. We need to go and synchronize our mobile device. We can get that call, take it, boom, synchronize it while we're staying there in the platform. With Member Picker, we can now add, assign an assignee and watcher with new role and company filtering. So we have just kind of new capabilities there. For instance, you don't have to scroll through tons of different names. If you know that you just need to capture the electrical foreman or an inspector, you can go and capture and scroll through and find them a lot faster. Not having to know names, super important. Additionally, personalized tool access. This was one I think I may have even made a request on the ACC ideas. I think it was it's really handy. You can go and check it out. So we can now reorder tools. So if you're looking at the bottom tray on your mobile device and you had, there was the first 5 options there that were you know, they were native and they were hard coded. Now we can go and take those tools, say that you always want to be able to jump to something that was on that second page when you had to scroll over and hit more. We can now drag those and move those around, kind of like moving our columns in a spreadsheet, or with the gear. We can now drag those over to the mobile device and have the tools that you access most commonly available on the bottom tray right when we get into the platform. Okay, so now we can pivot and take a look over at our cost management. And in this case, we will start with budgeting control. So we have better visibility now. We can now see into our expenses and sub items within a given line item. So we have a kind of bottom fly out, and you'll be able to go and having to, instead of having to go and click in and then click out and jump around as much, you'll be able to see the components that are tied to kind of the hierarchy. You'll be able to see all the sub items and expenses in one location rather than having to drill in and out. This will save us time. We don't have to, you know, ultimately the goal is to reduce the picks and clicks, and we'll be able to identify where trends or something is inconsistent. We'll be able to identify that more quickly. You know, if a single item, a single cost element has maybe a bunch of different unapproved expenses, you can identify that immediately, and it gives us the ability to go and kind of react and go capture information from the stakeholders who are maybe holding us up. Now we have the ability to, you know, view all items based on permission level, and additionally we have the ability to filter, group, and save these views for better cost management, so that we don't have to go and recreate those views. And really that tool has just been enhanced, the ability to save those views and jump back to those quickly. This helps us, this supports a faster monthly process, closeout process, helps us with our forecasting, and we don't have to do, maybe if we're trying to, maybe if we have to go execute tasks outside, we may not need to do that anymore, have some perhaps less manual spreadsheets that we deal with. All right, moving along to some contract management. So we can now review our schedules of values, bills of quantities more easily, and we're able to tie multiple budget line items to, we are able to tie multiple SOVs to a single budget line item. So this is very simplified. If we have complex scopes and we need to be able to, say, tie an HVAC scope into its sub-levels of perhaps install, test, and commissioning, need to have those multiple line items. We can now, instead of having to create redundant budget line items, we can now have that same one and tie all those elements to that single budget line item, the SOVs to that single line item. It helps us with our reporting and gives us the ability to kind of review and stay up to date with these line items, making sure that we've captured all the information, understanding whether or not we maybe are under, or perhaps we are running over budget, and it allows us to stay kind of on top of all of those tracking needs. E-signature. So this is something that was quite powerful. Integration with our other e-signature platforms, the ability to integrate with Dropbox Sign, the ability to also, I believe others, obviously another one perhaps Hello Sign, and other of the, you know, the electronic sign solutions. We now have the ability to, there's there's rather than having to do a connect integration, these are all baked. These are now baked in. And if you would like, you can take a review or maybe give us a call. We can take a look at which one of those electronic signature platforms are supported with this, these capabilities, these integrations. So if we need to, okay, so obviously, instead of having to go and do a manual process, if we have, say, change order, a change order request that goes out, and now at this point, when everyone updates and accepts the change order will now automatically close out once everyone has identified as accepted for change orders. So it's just eliminating a single, kind of a manual step that would also, if when it's a manual step, it takes us, we might have gone to vacation or we missed it until 2 days down the road, but now it automatically will transfer, rather automatically status update to accepted. All right, so now we're talking a little bit about supply change orders, and we do have a few more of these. I apologize, I'm running a little bit longer than I thought I would, but ultimately just wanted to be detailed enough in here. So as far as supplier change orders, we can now automatically generate internal budget transfers for supplier change order creation. So this is tied, what this means is that with our when we generate that supplier SCO, the supplier change order, the system will automatically create an internal budget transfer. We don't have to go and do that in a manual step afterwards. So this is important because it's manual, and when that sub submits the change order, the project team has to create that corresponding internal move. They have to go and shift the budget, perhaps shift budget from contingency or owner reserve, whatever the case is, in order to cover that. And that was all manual before. And of course, anything that's manual can be error prone. We're all human. Now it's linked, it's tied together, and it's automated. So now it ensures that the books are balanced, and supplier change orders aren't slipping through the cracks with perhaps that internal manual adjustment. This allows us for traceability between external changes and internal financial planning, of course, just kind of having those two linked back and forth. You don't have to go and navigate and play detective, just very handy automation that ensures that we're staying on track. All right, so now some of those AI components we talked about earlier. Again, the language assistant now in all of the ACC supported languages. As you go into that build help file, again, maybe looking at those May enhancements, I saw it myself earlier today, there's the ACC supported languages. So maybe navigate there. As needed, we can go and maybe supply that link to those supported languages. Again, for these more complex, larger projects that bring in external parties, potentially global project team members, this will be very handy. And those Insight Builders, I really suggest you take a look. The Insight Builder dashboards, again, they're way more robust and can be more complex than we can. And we no longer have to go use that third-party tool. We don't have to go out and use Power BI. Now, we all understand Power BI. It will inevitably allow us to be a little bit more flexible with our data, potentially, but there's going to be a lot of value in just the Pure Insights Builder, and it's baked into the platform now. Column controls in submittal PDFs. This allows us to kind of instead of having to have that one size fits all for the export of that PDF, we can now move around columns, we can remove columns, and so we can really make that submittal report look the way that we want it to, rather than having to just kind of have information baked into it that we didn't necessarily need. I know that that customization is really desirable from our end users. A little bit more about the Insight Builder. We now have access directly to new data sets for cost management and for schedule. And if you get a chance, go dig in. It's really easy to set up. You just navigate, go to your account, go to the Insights dashboard, and right there below Insights is Insight Builder. Now we can go and just dig in and start to open up and develop new dashboards. You're going to be able to access that data. It's live data. That's something that's very powerful, that gets us way beyond what we can do with an exported data set from to leverage in Power BI. So of course you've got that, or even connect those through the Insights, or rather the data connector. So yeah, I really suggest everyone take a look at the Insight Builder and get some of those the more real-time data sets, and just get that Power BI type of feel, but directly here in ACC. All right, report scheduling. So with our schedule dashboards, you can now send those to email, via email rather, or that direct link. As we all know, there's the capability with sharing, the ability to send a link to someone directly, super handy. We can also control who has access to it, and for the duration that they have access to it. As we all know, there's the kind of that public sharing capability. We can change how long the information is live and expires. We can do that as well, and ultimately allows us to take the right data set, share it with our stakeholders, and so and just make that a scheduled process, rather than having to do it manually. When it's scheduled, it's off our plate. We know that it's happening, and our clients and our subs and so on, stakeholders, they appreciate getting that on a consistent basis. Some of our workflow enhancements, simplified reporting setup. So we now have new panel interfaces for our report creation, side panel interface creations. This happened on our on the Forms tool a while ago, and now we have new capabilities for setting up those reports and just being a little bit cleaner in that setup process. We can add email subject lines to kind of provide context and to really clarify what is this about. And also we can filter our recipients by project access to control that distribution. What level of viewer, or rather project member, what level of access do they have? We can filter that we have a new option for that filtering capability. All right, data filtering for better reports. We now have some new options to filter for these reports. We can now filter by assignee, by watcher. Assignee is very powerful. The custom attributes in the issues reports. So whenever we're going and creating our customized attributes for our files or for various aspects across the different modules, we can now filter by those custom attributes. We can also filter by trade, or say that you need to filter by all of your O3 for your spec, for that spec section. In the submittal report, we again have enhanced filtering capabilities. This is more relevant information, contextual for what that report needs to reflect. It just helps us to get, again, not have extraneous ancillary data that we don't need to capture. It just allows us to narrow in on what truly matters for the report. All right, so with some of our bridge capabilities and enhancements here, it allows us, now we have better cross-project collaboration. We can now share entire folders that include the custom attributes. So again, speaking to those custom attributes that I just said we were able to filter by, we can now we can share those folders with those custom attributes. So those attributes really can enhance our searchability and again, the context in which of the data that we're seeing. You can add, those custom attributes can be things like trade, a status, location or zone, things like that. And it allows us just better visibility with those customized attributes and just kind of drill in and access what information we need to share for the bridge module, make sure that we're sharing the correct information and with the correct visibility, perhaps to those custom data points. We can do, and again, just generally, it improves collaboration across project teams, because if you're not using the bridge tool, really want to suggest that you do so, both with model workflows in for instance, the ABC Pro and modeling process there for design and VDC workflows, but also for just general project sharing, so we can kind of keep our work in progress behind our firewall and our hub, and then ensure that we're communicating appropriately the appropriate information to our various stakeholders. All right, in the library, we have some standardization. We can build and maintain our project standards now. We can reuse issue types and root causes across projects. So we all, this is a big one. We want to make sure that we have standardization across our delivery and enabling this process, so we can now have those root causes and all that customization we build into one and into a template now is able to be reused across our projects. And as I said, issue tracking is now consistent. We don't call something in one project something and then something else in another. And it also enhances the kind of the standardized reporting capabilities. So, of course, as it says, for those of us who are working on, maybe there's, you have 30, 40, 50 different project managers, they might set things up differently. This will really help to standardize that process with your content. Forms. So the forms and the field data collection, we can now add location data when we're publishing those form templates. So we can now capture that location information. If you're not leveraging the locations, I suggest you maybe take a look at that. Area 1, area A, floor 1, floor 2, level C, roof level, things like that helps us to kind of identify locations and filter and sort our data. So this allows us to, again, have those forms in our library shared across projects so that you have that enhanced standardization as we all want. And I'll try to hustle through the last few here. In our library, again, additional updates for our project templates. We can create and manage multiple project templates at the account level. So we no longer have to copy over settings manually or try to remember what folder or which folders had which permissions and structures, what was the sheet named last time, that kind of thing. Now we have the ability with the templates for different project types as well. So a high rise, or is this an infrastructure project? Is this an interior? It just allows us to spin up projects a lot more quickly. So we can now also include sheet folder configurations. Means you can predefine exactly how drawings are organized. Is it a civil? Is it structural, MEP, architectural, mechanical, break it out from the MEPs, the trades. And this structure appears automatically when the project starts. So we don't have to break that out after the project's already been initiated into the ACC. And of course, anything we can do to have that standardization expedites the process, and especially in setup, that's important. So for some of our admin tools, smarter admin user management specifically, we have the ability to assign multiple companies to a single user. So if we are owner's rep and we need to be represented by both the owner for to be able to fall under that umbrella, as well as our own company, things like that, we can now do that. And we have the ability, we have enhanced ability to manage and deal with our internal and external project team members, subs, consultants, things like that. And also it allows us to just be on top of and track and report across stakeholder visibility. Again, kind of that enhanced reporting capabilities we spoke of earlier. Permission management. So as far as this is concerned, we now have the ability to apply project level settings to both RFIs and submittals. So it's huge for teams that need consistency across projects, but it requires flexibility to each individual project based on users, based on the scopes, based on the project type, things like that. So the project engineer can now submit, they can submit RFIs when only the architect can review submittals, and then that can maybe, we can change that based on perhaps who the prime consultant or contract is through for the next project, things like that. We can really have a lot more flexibility. All right, so I've added the link to that home page, and I really want to stress that people go there. It's very, very useful for the build help file rather. And as always, if you have any questions or things that you would like to look into, maybe dig into those insight builders, please reach out. Myself and my colleagues are here all day long, every day to work with you. There's just a lot that's coming out, and we're always excited to talk to you about the new updates. By all means, reach out to your account reps, and if there's any questions you have, please kind of funnel those through them. They get those to us, and if there's any questions, we can now try to field those. I know we don't have a ton of time, but I want to make sure that I give a chance for Lori to maybe throw some of those out to me. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Looks like a few of you held on. I really do appreciate it.